Okay, so it's no secret that Kakashi is my favorite character in Naruto. And if you weren't aware by now, Piccolo is my favorite character in Dragon Ball. And I had a friend tell me, wouldn't it be wonderful if you could do a video on them fighting? To which I said, alright. I know that these are two different verses, so it's going to be a bit tricky to cover, as all versus battle videos with cross-verse are. But nonetheless, I'm here to try and tackle this one. Well, real quick before we get started, if you haven't yet, please subscribe to the channel. And if you like today's content, be sure to leave a like and comment below on what you think. I can't tell y'all how much I appreciate the support y'all keep giving, and I hope y'all continue to do so even as I attempt to branch out to different topics in media. Y'all are the best subscribers, don't ever forget that. With all that said, let's get into it. Now, to be more specific, the versions of each character are going to be as they are hinted at in the thumbnail. It's going to be Kakashi versus Piccolo at their peak. Now, I know for a lot of people, myself included, Hokage Kakashi is the peak, given the exponential growth in skill and power he gains after losing his Sharingan, but that is Kakashi at his peak under normal circumstances. For clarity, the peak is what I would consider the strongest version of the character, which of course would be DMS or Double Mangekyō Sharingan Kakashi. Now for Piccolo, it's a bit more up in the air and debatable. And just in case anyone was wondering, this is going to be Piccolo from Dragon Ball Z specifically, not Dragon Ball Super or even Dragon Ball GT. For many Dragon Ball fans, Piccolo peaked at the end of the Cell Saga after his respective turn inside the hyperbolic time chamber. Others believe it's after the 7-year time skip from the Cell Saga to the Buu Saga, especially since there's a quote from Dende in the anime that says Piccolo is stronger than he's ever been. This is of course after the Cell Saga. So to be the most fair to the character in question, I'm going to be using Piccolo from after the 7-year time skip and at the beginning of the Buu Saga. The battlefield of this fight isn't going to be specific either, just in case anyone wants to know. It'll be like an open field where like they are in Dragon Ball, or even like a random dimension that Kaguya sent Team 7 in the War Arc of Naruto. So first things first, I'll run down the abilities of each character in case some viewers aren't familiar with the other series and or character. Starting with Kakashi. So with DMS, he gains access to 2 Mangekyō Sharingan, which allows him to better perceive attacks and thereby helping his reaction time. This also increases the speed of his most deadly attack, which is Kamui. Kamui is a technique where Kakashi makes a small black hole to send either objects, attacks, or even people to his own pocket dimension. Once the opponent is in said dimension, they cannot get out. Well, I mean, relatively speaking. I know there have been arguments and speculations for certain characters here and there, but again, relatively speaking, they can't get out. With the right Sharingan, he's also able to physically phase out parts of his body at will, making him intangible whenever a person tries to attack him. Kakashi also has an arsenal of over 1,000 techniques, and most of them consist of the 5 basic nature transformations of Naruto, such as fire, wind, water, earth, and lightning. Lightning being the one he excels most at. With his lightning style affinity specifically, he's able to use an attack known as Lightning Blade, or Raikiri, that utilizes lightning style to surround his hand to make for a powerful piercing attack, in which the technique's name comes from the feat of Kakashi being able to cut a bolt of lightning in half before it can touch the ground. He's also able to use a technique called Lightning Fang, where he utilizes lightning style from a distance to create a lightning hound that will charge at an enemy. On top of this, he's also able to use the Shadow Clone Jutsu, which is able to create multiple physical copies of himself by distributing his chakra among them. He's also able to use a lightning style Shadow Clone, which makes the clone electrocute enemies on command or when they disappear. He's also able to use a Shadow Clone and make a lightning cable in between himself and the clone, and is able to do lethal damage to V2 Shinchurikis in the War Arc of Naruto. He's also able to use what's called Genjutsu, which is pretty much altering the chakra flow in a person to create illusions, to confuse, or even damage an opponent psychologically. And last, with his DMS power-up, he's able to use what's called the Susanoo, which is a giant ethereal armor-like entity that's capable of dealing great damage, as well as being able to utilize great defense. In Kakashi's case, it comes with wings, thereby enabling him to fly, and is able to extend the power of Kamui to giant shuriken that are able to warp anything they come into contact with. Now moving on to Piccolo. After he unites with Kamui in the Android Saga, he becomes stronger than the main cast, which includes the likes of Trunks, Vegeta, and Goku, all of whom are Super Saiyans at this point. And by this point, Super Saiyan is considered like the pinnacle of power, so being above that was definitely noteworthy. And even though the aforementioned Saiyans become much more powerful through their training in the hyperbolic time chamber, Piccolo has his own respective turn inside the hyperbolic time chamber and gains strength that is at least relative to the main cast, even being able to outperform the likes of Trunks, Vegeta, and a tired Super Saiyan Goku against the Cell Juniors, who were all supposedly relative to Perfect Cell. I'm not really sure. Piccolo has attacks such as Destructive Wave, Special Beam Cannon, and Light Grenade that don't really have actual hacks to them. They just do raw damage. But Piccolo can also use an ability called Multiform, which is very similar to the Shadow Clone Jutsu from Naruto, where he splits his strength and power to make copies of himself and splits his energy and power among the copies of himself as well. Piccolo also has the ability to regenerate his body, and by the time of the Buu Saga, seems like he could do so rather quickly. As long as his head isn't damaged and is intact, he's able to consistently regenerate from any injury. Now, right from the start, I know one of the main things that's probably going to come up in the comments is the subject of the timer, so to speak, for Kakashi having DMS. For those of you who aren't aware, the timer is in reference to Kakashi's friend Obito, who gave Kakashi the Sharingan in his left eye. At some point, Kakashi had gotten it stolen by Madara Uchiha, and Obito was given it back, thereby giving him both Mangekyō Sharingan. Later on in the arc, Obito was killed by Kaguya, and through some weird Deus Ex Machina, Obito was able to transfer his chakra inside of Kakashi in order to give him the DMS in order to help Naruto and Sasuke fight Kaguya. Now, in the scene where Obito gives it to him, he tells Kakashi that there is a fixed time limit for how long he can use DMS, but the time itself is never actually stated in specific. Ironically, it almost seems as though the timer, quote unquote, is in accordance for however long Obito wants to chill inside Kakashi's spirit. Like in the anime and the manga, he says things like, "I ought to go now," but he never once says things like, "I don't have much time left." Now, that's not me saying that there isn't a timer for DMS, because there obviously is. But what I am saying is that there's no definitive duration for it. But if we say at the most fairness that it's anywhere from 5 to 10 minutes max, then that's how long Kakashi has in order to end the fight before he loses DMS. But to be frank, I don't think this is going to be a long, drawn-out fight. Because like I said earlier, we have one character here that completely towers over the other in terms of raw power and physical strength. And yet, we also have another character who is just much more hacks than the other. So it's safe to say that one way or the other, this fight is going to be relatively short. The first thing I want to start off with and cover is the subject of intelligence, because I've actually often seen fans compare and debate who is smarter among the two. While Piccolo is definitely one of the more intelligent characters in all of Dragon Ball, not just among the Z fighters, the problem is that DBZ is not really a series where it heavily relies on tactics and strategy. I mean, don't get me wrong, there's definitely some strategy incorporated into DBZ fights here and there, but when compared to a show like Naruto, especially from part 1 to early War Arc Naruto, there's not as much strategy in those fights by a long shot. By extension, there hasn't been much opportunity for Piccolo to show off his mental acuity when compared to someone like Kakashi, who, let's be honest, has feats galore. If I really wanted to be generous to Piccolo and try to highball him here, especially with him having Kamui's intelligence, then I'd say at bare minimum I put them both on the same level of intelligence. But if I'm being realistic, then I'd probably give it to Kakashi to have the overall higher intellect. Now, onto the actual fight itself. So like I said earlier, Piccolo is just overall a different tier above Kakashi in terms of raw power and strength. By the time of the Buu Saga, you could make some decent arguments to put him on the same level as Super Saiyan 1 Goku at the beginning of the Buu Saga at best, and base Goku at the beginning of the Buu Saga at worst. Meaning that it's likely that just one punch or blast from Piccolo is going to be enough to kill Kakashi. So Kakashi has absolutely no room for error here. But at the same time, all that raw power and strength is meaningless if Piccolo can't even hit his opponent. Meaning that attacks like Special Beam Cannon, Light Grenade, and even Hell Zone Grenade is rendered completely useless if Kakashi can just phase right through it. But that said, conversely, all that phasing from Kakashi is also going to be meaningless if he can't actually end up injuring Piccolo. And if I had to guess, I'd say that almost every jutsu in Kakashi's arsenal is not going to be strong enough to really injure this Piccolo. Everything except for Kamui. Kamui obviously just negates durability completely. Now, I know some people might give some credit to Raikiri and say that he could do damage to Piccolo with it. On that, I mean, I could see the arguments, but even if you don't subscribe to the idea that regular Raikiri could do some damage, Kamui Raikiri definitely could. Kamui Raikiri is basically the same concept as Kamui Shuriken, where he incorporates Kamui into the lightning blade to completely ignore durability and damage his opponent. Case in point, Kamui Raikiri was able to do arguably more damage to Kaguya than Naruto did, even with all his different types of the Rasen Shuriken that he threw at her. Because while she definitely took damage from it, she looked more like she got a bit disheveled and scathed, whereas Kakashi literally tore through her shoulder completely with just one attack. Which means however durable Piccolo is to Kakashi's normal attacks, if he uses Kamui Raikiri on him, it's gonna do lethal damage either way. By extension, if he's also able to touch Piccolo, he's done for. Because now that Kakashi has both Sharingan, he's able to do what Obito does, and as soon as he touches him, he can pull them into Kamui. And that's not even mentioning the fact that Kakashi can just snipe people from Kamui from a distance too. And depending how close Kakashi is to Piccolo when he attempts to snipe him, the snipe could be faster, as the closer he is to an opponent, the quicker Kamui will be. And again, that's also not even mentioning that with this being Kakashi with 2 MS, the speed of his Kamui on that alone is going to be doubled. And adding on top of that, the fact that he also has 6-pass power, which is confirmed to enhance visual prowess too, the speed of Kamui is going to be even more faster, as evident when Kakashi Kamui Kaguya's portal almost as soon as she opened it, and being able to outspeed Madara's True Secret Orb coming at he and Obito at full speed. And that was Kakashi with A, losing his sight, and B, not having any 6-pass chakra. Now on the subject of the Susanoo, I'm kind of iffy on its usefulness here, because on the one hand, we saw what someone like Jigen did to Sasuke with his Susanoo, but on the other hand, Kakashi's Susanoo is a bit more hacks than Sasuke, so you could argue it'd be just more useful here. Especially if you operate on the assumption that the Susanoo can use Kamui too. Kind of like how Sasuke in the anime was able to use the Fireball Jutsu from the Susanoo, as if the Susanoo itself is actually using the Fireball Jutsu, and just the fact that Kakashi was able to combine the power of Kamui with the giant Susanoo Shuriken, I don't think it's too far-fetched to believe the Susanoo itself can use a different version of Kamui, specifically the phasing ability. But to be fair, we didn't see that, so to take that as total headcanon. Now, Piccolo does have his multi-form technique, like I said earlier, but Kakashi can make shadow clones to possibly match the numbers. And even though Kakashi won't be able to likely tell which one is the real Piccolo just by looking, we did see Kakashi was able to at least perceive which Itachi was the clone in part 1 in time to save Kurenai from the explosion. So maybe Kakashi could be quick enough to do the same thing here. Now there's also the subject of Genjutsu. Now I know that these are 2 different universes, so the fact that DBZ characters don't confirmedly have what is known as chakra, you could make the argument that Genjutsu wouldn't apply here and that it wouldn't affect Piccolo if Kakashi tried to attempt it. But if you did want to say that it still applies here, then Piccolo not having any knowledge of Genjutsu at all, it could leave an opportunity for Kakashi to use it, and while he's stuck in the Genjutsu, snipe him with Kamui. Now conversely, Piccolo does have the ability to speak to people telepathically. So if Piccolo is clever enough, he can try to do so to Kakashi to throw him off quick enough and land a decisive blow. Now, the biggest aspect of the fight that I've been meaning to get to is probably what's going to determine the outcome of the fight: speed. This is probably what's going to divide the fans the most when it comes to this video. So I've tried to scour the manga, anime, and even online to gauge how fast Piccolo might be by either the end of the Cell Saga or the beginning of the Buu Saga. But as far as I can find, the only real definitive scaling I could find for his speed is in the Saiyan Saga. Piccolo blows up the moon in around 4 to 5 seconds. The way that most fans have debated and speculated is that it puts his speed anywhere from 30 to 32% light speed. But by the time of the Buu Saga, he's trained so much that he has to be way above that. But without any more concrete evidence for his speed scaling, it's tough to know how much more faster he is compared to Kakashi. Whereas Kakashi is also on the level of light speed at the very least. Light speed when it comes to combat speed at that part of the story is introduced by KCM1. KCM2 is obviously faster than that. We also know that Kakashi has the perception time needed to keep up with characters such as KCM1 Naruto and a KCM2 Naruto clone, as well as being able to outreact characters like Renegon Obito when he used Kamui on the KCM2 clone before Obito can notice. And it's also that feat of him being able to move at a similar speed with KCM2 Minato when they try to attack Zetsu. And 6-pass Sage Mode Naruto is obviously faster than KCM2, and Kaguya is faster than that. Kakashi was able to blitz Kaguya. So even if you only assume that Naruto gets a 2x speed boost with each new form he gets, you could at least get Kakashi a low ball at 8x FTL. So it's definitely easy to get them both above light speed, but it's definitely difficult to gauge how much faster one is compared to the other. I think if you wanted to low or highball each of them, the safest argument would be that Piccolo would likely edge out Kakashi in overall speed, but that Kakashi, with his precog and physical speed of his own, he'd be able to at least react to Piccolo's movements as well. Now what I will add on is that if somehow the fight drags on, then the other deciding factor will be stamina, to which Piccolo will, also tower over Kakashi. Even with Kakashi's chakra buff, Piccolo was able to last a pretty long time against Android 17, who literally never loses energy or runs out of stamina. Though something I did want to mention is something that I don't think people give enough credit, is that Kakashi, after he lost DMS, as in right after Obito left for good, even though Kakashi was obviously worn out and hurting from the after effects of using DMS, it only seemed to be that one instance. Like, even after Naruto and Sasuke left to fight, Kakashi was just casually chatting with Hagoromo. Like, he wasn't even so much as huffing and puffing or looking like he was on the edge of passing out or anything. Which, to be fair, I'm not really sure if that speaks more to his endurance rather than his stamina, but I still thought it was worth bringing up. Even though I haven't given a definitive answer as to who wins this yet, I know there will be people who think I'm giving Kakashi too much credit here because Piccolo is a completely different tier of a fighter, especially Cell Saga and Buu Saga, where Piccolo is way above planetary. But the reality is that all that power means nothing if he can't hit his opponent. Just as a point of reference, even though it was a movie, in Dragon Ball Z Fusion Reborn, we saw that Janemba, who had a similar ability to Kamui's phasing, where he dematerialized his whole body, we saw how much trouble it gave both Goku and Vegeta. The same thing might apply here too with Kakashi and Piccolo, especially since Piccolo isn't used to fighting opponents that can just phase at will. So again, I think the definitive answer as to who wins this is going to come down to a few things. One, who do you think is faster among the two? Or do you think it's Kakashi's more faster? Do you think Piccolo's more faster? Again, I would say that Piccolo is probably edging out Kakashi in overall speed, but with Kakashi's being a bit of a speedster himself, combined with his enhanced visual prowess and precog, I think he'd be able to keep up with Piccolo, at least in terms of being able to see and predict his movements. And the second thing is how long you want to assume the DMS timer is. So if you wanted to say that Kakashi can only use the DMS timer for the same amount of time it was used in the manga or the anime against Kaguya, then you go with that. If you wanted to be more fair and just be more assumptions and take what we saw at the statements from Obito as it's a really vague description of the timer, then you could give DMS Kakashi a little bit more longer duration. And the third thing is if you want to use Genjutsu in this fight or not. If you didn't want to use it, then Kakashi does have less room for error as it already was. But if you do want to say that Genjutsu could be applied in this fight, then it does provide Kakashi with a better opportunity to take the win. So all in all, I think that this fight is really, really, really close. I don't think people will agree with me, but at the end of the day, I think that one way or the other, this fight is like 50-50, and whoever wins, it's going to be like 5.5 to 6 out of 10. If we go on the side of Kakashi is able to use DMS for a little bit longer than it was shown in the anime or in the manga, and if you want to assume that Genjutsu could possibly work here, then I think Kakashi has more room to win here. But again, just barely. If you want to go on the other side and say that Kakashi can only use the DMS for the short amount of time he did against Kaguya, and if you also want to say that Genjutsu doesn't work here, then I think Piccolo has more of the edge here. But again, high difficulty. So there y'all have it. There's the rest of the video. I know this was like a really weird take on a fight like this. Again, cross-burst is something I'm trying to edge my way into here and there. I'm hoping y'all did enjoy it either way. Thank you all for watching all the way to the end if you have. Be sure to like the video if you haven't already. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Please click the bell for more notifications. And if you haven't, please comment below on other cross-bursts or other Naruto fights or DBZ fights you want me to do. Either way, keep on the lookout for Marvel videos on the way too. Thank you all for watching. Till the next one, Like the Snow, out.